Hi everyone, and welcome to the Question Pro Fireside chat. So this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, I'm really lucky to be joined by Racheal Smith from Entelechy. And today we're going to be learning about how we can potentially use data in sort of enhancing our sort of personal character qualities and also skills within the business, but also in our lives as well. I just thought it would be really super interesting to get Racheal's opinion on all these sorts of topics. So as a brief introduction, just so I don't miss anything from your profile, I would say you're I could make something completely up here, but I'll give you a couple of minutes just to tell everyone who you are, what you do, and anything else crazy about cats, dogs, or anything like that.
We've had to lock the cats out because poor Jake and I were like this with me with cats like that. Do you want me to shut the door? I'm Racheal Smith, as you hear, head of learning at Entelechy, just so you know. And we are. I have been in L&D all my life. To be fair, I've never left school. So I've continued on the learning conveyor belt. I've worked with Entelechy for the last 3.5 years. And I feel super blessed, to be fair, because it's giving me an opportunity to do what I couldn't do because I used to be a teacher. I'm quite proud of that fact as well. And what Entelechy has given me the opportunity to do that I couldn't do in teaching is influence the debate over what good learning is. So it was a difficult moment to leave teaching because you lose a little bit of your identity, but it's an exciting opportunity to, move forward and make a real change. So yeah, that's me.
And out of curiosity, just from that, because obviously you've gone through the teaching profession and now going into more of the maybe commercial world, it would be fair to say.
Yeah.
Why didn't you think you could make that influence? Because you can make an influence on like a child's life or someone's life whilst being a teacher. So what part of the journey do you think you couldn't make as much of an influence that you can now in your sort of head of learning role?
It's a different sort of influence. You're right. I mean, when I was a teacher, I could name a whole host of individual lives where I probably set them off on in the right direction, or gave them some sort of influence that meant that they were better off for having met me, let's say, which always makes your sense of purposefulness and meaning in life super strong. However, education is a tool of the government, not to get too political, but essentially I was more and more being directed on what I was allowed to spend my time doing and what success looked like, in which didn't necessarily reflect what I thought success looked like. So one year, I mean, you'd think I'd celebrate, but I got 94% of our kids through with a C or grade or above, or what was then a 5 or above. Exactly. Celebration, right? But I also knew most of them weren't ready to enter the workplace. They weren't necessarily literate. I had very impressively played the system, but not necessarily provided the best educational experience. So that sort of conflict meant that I thought I needed something different. And what I can do now is make a difference via business. And businesses are another barrier to break down, because we have to persuade them that of a chain of causation that leads to profitability. But it's quite an easy one to come up with, which is if you see your people and you make them feel seen, they will engage in your business. The greater the engagement, the harder they work, the more productive they are, the more profits you get. And it's really simple chain of causation that means they're happy for us to come in and work on their culture, work on their people. And also, there's the speedboat and oil tanker analogy, right? So you also talk to them, when you talk to them and say, right, yeah, sure, you can be a leader and you can tell everyone one by one what they're meant to do. And you can feel all powerful and godlike. but your agility is in the toilet, basically, because by the time you get to the 7,000 person, everything's changed and you have to start again. It's like painting the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Or you can empower every individual to be a speedboat, where they make their own decisions based on your navigation, which is the argument for helping them become their own learners. So essentially, the argument is easier to make in business for all the right changes, because you can make them commercial.
You're stealing my thunder for some quick quiz questions I was going to ask you at the end. So I'm going to save those until near the end. But just as a very quick reminder as well, if you do have any sort of questions for myself or Racheal whilst we're talking, please do just drop them in the comments, and the team will just pop them up for myself and Racheal to answer. And we'll just answer those on the fly, as long as they're not hard or difficult or anything like that. And we might just pass them along, but I'm sure we won't. But as a starting point, could you maybe, if no one knew about the work Entelechy do, could you maybe just describe what you do, why you do it, and why you exist, I guess, in the marketplace?
We exist because my founder David felt that everything was directed at the wrong thing. So it was directed at telling people what to do rather than helping people understand how to be a good human being. So for me, the simplest way of explaining it is through my granddad. So my granddad was one of those typical wartime granddads, who thinks that nobody knows what good character is anymore because you haven't faced a German bullet. It's that sort of concept. But he was always of the mind that if you had good character, it didn't matter what life sent your way, you would likely succeed. So for me, this is absolutely super crucial, because I come from quite a poor, difficult background, with very few opportunities. So in some respects, my rise through to university, I was first generation university for my family, really unknown for the area. And I know that what took me there was my own resilience, some would call it, bloody mindedness, my friends would call it, but an inner grit. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's well known in sport and in the armed forces, for instance, that the differentiator is mindset or the character that you have within you. And it's that we're in the market to deliver. And the reason why we think it's super crucial at the moment is because it's very difficult to turn to external forces and trust what you're getting nowadays. So the only option we really have for ourselves is to empower ourselves internally. So to take the innate qualities that we're born with and turn them then to our advantage. So essentially, Entelechy has codified it. We've come up with 54 innate qualities that makes us all human. And those 54 qualities are at different levels in all of us. And it's those different levels that make us individuals. So I might be, let's say, more competitive than you. I doubt it. I have a feeling, Jake, but I might be. And equally, you might be more compassionate than me. And that's what makes us different as human beings. What we give people the opportunity to do is find out about themselves and their character, and business to find out about their people and their character. And we extend that to the company. So we give companies an idea of their character, which has got other names in business called like culture and values and vision and all of those sorts of things. But because it's also values-driven behavior, they can directly link to their employees. So it's a direct line, of course.
And I'm guessing actually you could use the sort of those sort of characters and the information that you've put together, not just to speak to current employees, but you could actually use that process right at the start when people are employing people, just to see actually would they be a really good fit using your modeling, to understand actually would they fit within the, I don't know, marketing and comms team or the research team or the sales team and see actually would X person fit within that group of people that we know sit on these sorts of different metrics that you've been putting together.
Completely right. We are, as my my line manager Kaylin says, a Swiss Army knife, or my founder says it as well, in as much as you can pull out different applications for us. But yeah, succession planning as well. So you can find your leaders with the qualities that have been successful within your business in the past. You can find out what is it that's made your sales team so successful? How have they strived? What qualities have they developed? And then seek that in new employees. Equally justifiably, you could argue, well, success comes through diversity. Success comes from having a variety of these human qualities across the business. And you can make sure that there is a breadth of quality that you can draw upon for different aspects of your business, but also to coach across your business. So, like I say, there are numerous applications, but for me, recruitment is probably the more exciting ones, because paper qualifications are becoming less and less relevant, and the sort of person you are when you show up is becoming more and more relevant. So the fact that we can give a verified view of that character through our product, through our data analysis, can give businesses a real head start on hiring the right people. You're right.
And then based on your sort of work today, because we've mentioned a lot about sort of character-based modeling to some extent, do you think there's a difference between the sort of character-based versus characteristics, and in how that could look like in a business environment, or could they be similar?
It's more to do with the difference between what businesses currently call personality and what we call character. So businesses are more likely to profile their people on personality at the moment and give them those personality profiles as a means of aiding communication between people. So if I know you're a red and I'm a blue, then I know how to adapt my style in order to supplement yours or improve yours. The reason we offer a different form of profile, and I struggle with that word because it comes with a whole load of negative implications. But we give you a report on yourself based on character rather than personality, because personality is fixed from the age of 7. All it does is it sets in you a fixed mindset that says all I can do is adapt to this reality that I live with, which is not a very good premise for the start of learning. Not going to lie. A much better premise for the start of learning is a growth mindset. And because these character qualities are innate in all of us, what that allows us to do is to grow and change the story. And the best example I can give you is last year. This is I promise true. I'm not just making up a story.
I would hate you to be making things up on the fireside.
Completely true. What's about
in trouble for that?
Disclaimer at the bottom. Last year I worked on Influential because, as head of learning of a disruptive educational approach, you have to appear quite credible and you have to look like you know what you're talking about. And also we restructured and made it so that I was horizontal across the business when everyone else was in a vertical. So I wasn't like I was an associate member of every team, which meant that I had to be influential across a business, taking ideas from there and putting them over there. So I spent 6 months last year focusing on that character quality and doing these small experiments on how that would work, and using language of encouragement rather than language of control and all of these sorts of things. Every so often we do what we call a mini 360, and we send out requests for videos from everyone, and our colleagues big us up. Basically, it's one of those nice, warm and cuddly moments where you say nice things about your colleagues. And about 4 or 5 of my colleagues all commented on how influential I'd become because of the work I'd been doing and how that had helped them within the business and helped move the business forward. And it's sort of that growth from being a person who was very much a lone wolf, who told the story of saying, I have no influence. I just Do you know what I mean? No one listens to me.
Yeah.
To rewriting that story to someone who is happy to be on your fireside chat, trying to influence people. So that's the difference between that fixed idea of having to adapt to our growth idea of being actually genuinely given the opportunity to be the potential that you have inside of you, essentially.
And I guess one of the challenges I've always found with these, even when like managing people, but also receiving those typical 360 type of feedback loops, is that you feel like you're participating in a program, but then it's more of a checkbox for the business or employer to say, yes, we found out who you are, what you do, what you like, but then it's more of a, yes, that can now sit in a Google folder and more or less forgotten about to some extent, unless someone moans about it or comments about it. What are your thoughts on making sure that, I guess those sorts of things don't get forgotten about, and the employees then feel, to your point right at the start, feel cared for, and then hopefully then perform even better in their job?
A really perceptive question, actually, because the what next is the thing that's usually done quite poorly in both 360s and personality profiles. And we're a character insight tool that uses a 360 methodology, so we cross both over. And you're right, in the past, those 360s have almost been done to people, and they feel almost like a check-in to see whether you're being made accountable rather than being made seen. And I remember sitting in a meeting with my deputy head teacher and head teacher, and all three of us had filled in the same questionnaire sheet, and the sheer horror of seeing them having ticked a lower box on something than me and having to sit there in front of them going, so it's not like that. And we are a learning tool. We're not a reporting tool. So the whole point of this is to give you the what next. So our whole methodology at Entelechy is based on coaching and mentoring. It's based on this idea of how can we help you and support you to rewrite that story. So when you open your insights dashboard from Entelechy, it's not this is who you are. It's do you recognize this? What do you think of this? Why is this cropped up this time? We even acknowledge that it's a snapshot in time, and you could have been having a bad morning and been completely grumpy, and that's why optimistic's in the growth opportunity. So we pose questions like that, and then we offer your 360 people the same opportunity, and they can give you comments. But again, those comments are a snapshot in time. So that when we represent them back to you, we say, do you agree with this pattern that's been created about your character? Do you want to challenge it? Can you see why they see differently to you? So basically, the whole thing is a learning experience to look at the data visualizations, but next to those are a whole load of guiding principles to help you move yourself forward with this new insight into yourself. And most importantly, we have our action map where we offer personalized responses to the data for that individual to be able to go out and action, and encourage them to come back in 3 or 6 months to repeat the exercise to see if those actions have made the difference. So we have live it, grow it, own it, share it as our 4 action categories based on the input of the 180 360. So if I have a blind spot and I think I'm super strong at something, like I think I put down that I was strong at organized, and my team said I wasn't. Rude.
You see that little one thinking you're super organized, but actually you're just really not, are you? There you
Chaotic.
go.
I'm like the cat that with the laser beam, where you can be talking to them and they go, oh, pretty light, pretty. So yeah, but that challenged me to think, do I need to share how I organize myself more, or do I have to acknowledge that I have to grow that? And it's that moment of challenge that gives me pause to think about the change. And as you can hear, there's a strong focus on the transform, on the what next. So there's we offer support in action planning. We support the manager in having performance management conversations using character as the mechanism. We train managers into being coaches of our methodology as well. So all in all, everything's about the transform.
So here's my challenging question. So if you're, as a manager then, if I know that I'm using a platform like yours to coach my team, and it's using loads and loads of data to understand where all of my different sort of staff are, and then my employees can also know how could they take that next step in the journey in whatever sort of character-based items they would like to improve on. Don't you think then the manager could actually become lazy because they know there's maybe a solution behind the scenes, which is coaching their employees to further progress over time? Or do you think there's still a role for that coach manager person?
I mean, I would challenge that 100% because post-pandemic, the manager in that first line management role has become the most crucial role in any organization. In many respects, it's possibly the only person that any employee has direct connection with at any given point. So our pitch to businesses is you want us to train up and empower those managers to be the coach in this situation. You want us to come in and show your managers how to talk about performance, use in a way that is encouraging, supportive, and it promotes genuine change in their people. And the problem is that learning on your own is incredibly difficult. You need accountability and you need validation. And that's exactly where we empower the manager to be a support, to spot the change when it happens, because that's so important. Because I don't know about you, but I haven't evolved that far from needing a star chart on the wall. I mean, every so often I buy myself chocolate just for having remembered to get up that morning, celebrate
Good
myself.
reward.
Do you know what I mean?
Do it.
So we do a lot to empower the managers in order to be able to validate the learning that their people have done and reward it, but also to show them where that engagement isn't in place. So they can see what actions are being undertaken. They can enter into one-to-one conversations with their people in order to coach them, to move them forward in that. We see the manager as absolutely central to that performance management process.
Good answer. I thought I'd challenge you.
Oh, on it.
And so as part of some of the research we conducted with yourselves, I thought we could just maybe talk around some of a couple of questions that we asked, and there were some I thought really interesting results that came about from those. So I remember it was a survey in the US and UK to individuals who are working, and we asked them around sort of what skills their ideal line manager should have, or what they thought they should have. And the main two were, one was sort of professional skills, and the other was leadership skills.
Yeah.
Were you surprised, or were you sort of thinking, oh, actually there's a hidden gap there of what a manager really should have as part of their sort of skill set?
Surprised, no. Hopeful that it would be different, yes. But we do. So what professional skills was the most surprising, because usually people are promoted up through the ranks because they have strong professional skills, and the only way to genuinely reward people within a business, it feels, is to promote them until they reach a point where they're beyond their competence, and then everyone moans about them. That feels like the way it goes. So I was surprised by the I think I'm talking about myself. No, I'm joking. That I was surprised by the professional skills, but I would imagine that's disappointment in employees who are not seeing their job role modeled well in their leader, who is probably struggling. Now, the reason I wasn't that surprised by the gap in leadership skills is because when we talk to customers, we get they talk a lot about the concept of an accidental leader. In other words, they haven't necessarily chosen leadership. It's been thrust upon them through the natural idea of a hierarchy within a business,
Yeah.
without full recognition that leadership is an actual separate skill set altogether. And I learned this in teaching. I was a pretty good teacher, to be fair. I was quite proud of the work I did in the classroom and often got good grades from Ofsted when they good or outstanding grades when they came in. I was a terrible manager because no one had taught me how to be a manager of people. I was just promoted to head of faculty and then told to get on. Now I had these 10 incredibly complex people who I barely got any contact time with to try and move their career forward with them. And I was totally de-skilled in that process. And I don't think I'm alone in that experience. And I think a lot of companies are going through a process where their people are suffering at the hands of someone who's not been trained to be their leader, and having to learn on them like little guinea pigs, all the mistakes that you always make when you become a leader and think that means being bossy, for instance, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, surprised and not surprised.
Well, that probably leads on to the other question that I found super interesting, which was around sort of what was the number one skill they thought their manager actually had. And then we found that only 1% thought that their manager had that sort of coaching skill set, which was sort of fascinating for me, really, in terms of, to your point, whether, people are sort of promoted to that sort of management level without the sort of training or the upskilling that they may need to, actually be super successful in that next role. Super interesting.
Yeah, that 1% coaching skill was both, I mean, made me want to celebrate a little bit because they're obviously natural pain point for our solution, but also made me feel a bit depressed. But what I think that's a recognition of is that becoming a coach is quite a specific skill set. And it's not, and a lot of it is counter to what you think you should be when you become a manager, first of all, because you think you should be in control. You think you should tell people what to do. You think you should put all the processes in place. You think you should pick people up when they've got it wrong, etc. All of the things that actually a coach would never choose to do. And some of the best leaders in the world are exceptional coaches because what they do is seek to encourage and empower and to draw out the talents of their people. And the last person in the world that should step up to do anything is the leader. They should be pushing forward the talent within their team and saying, I trust this person to be able to do it. And then being in the background with those sort of questions and suggestions if asked, but never telling people how to be successful. But it's such a difficult skill set if you've never been given any sort of guidance in how to do that.
And do you think it's a skill you can learn on the job, or do you actually think you need actual coaching to be a coach, or coaching to be a manager?
I think everything that a company needs is within its organization. I am a massive believer in the fact that most businesses are a container of untapped wisdom, because we all have our little nugget of wisdom to offer if only people knew it existed. So within any business, there will be someone who can role model those qualities for someone coming up, who can mentor them in that so that they can be that too. It's on the business to be able to know their people well enough to be able to know where those untapped elements of wisdom are and connect the dots. That's the best thing a business can do in order to make sure that all leaders within their organization are the encouraging, inspirational coaches needed to drive a business forward, really.
No, agreed. No, a massive untapped opportunity. And I've just worked out that we are nearly out of time. The time has flown by. So it's nearly gone. It's nearly coffee time. So thanks so much for your time, Racheal, today. It's been absolutely awesome having you on the Fireside Chat. Just a very quick note about next week, we've got Jim and Duncan from 50 Degree Insight talking with Asim about brand trackers, and that's on the 22nd of March at 11 o'clock. So please do stay tuned for that one as well. But yeah, thanks again, Racheal. It's been great speaking to you, and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.